This is Ramiro Crego, and this time I'm going to walk you through the homework for week 4, where we are going to be working with more advanced land cover classifications. The idea today is that you can practice certain skills like using the drawing tools to generate the training data, good training data, and then in the second part is how we are going to adapt the code we work during the class to classify another region that is of your interest. So I have the homework here, and for the first part, we have a code, and what it's asking us is to run this code, and we will see that we have a classification of around 60%, what is pretty low. So the job here is for you to fix those training polygons. We can add, delete, edit, and improve that classification. So right here I have the code. I just run it, and this is the classification. I can go ahead and load the satellite data and look that actually, yeah, we're having some issues here where a lot of this forest is being classified as water, and also you can see that a lot of forest is being classified as agriculture, and we having some issues with the water expanding. And when we look at this classification, we have errors pretty much in every single layer. So let's go ahead and turn on. We have here on all our polygons the training data, and I'm going to turn off this classification, and we have here the Landsat. And let's start with first with water. So here we know that we have water, agriculture, forest. So water is in blue. So let's see what here you can see straight away. So we need to activate what we're going to work with water. Yeah, you see that this polygon is including this island there. So yeah, of course that is being confusing the algorithm. So we're going to delete those two. These are all right. This is another one with problems. This is another one with problems. This one we can actually edit. We can move these vertices. So we only include water. Okay, so we have fixed their water. We won't probably add a few more polygons, so we can create some new training data. Fantastic. Now let's see forest. So here we have some forest polygons. These two don't look bad. One of the problems is this one here. This covering is including water, is including also agriculture. So we're going to delete this polygon. And we can create a new one right here. We can also create here. We can actually tell, okay, this island is actually forest. If you want, you can actually look into the high resolution imagery to confirm that that's forest. Oh, this is another polygon with pretty much a lot of problems. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. That's probably why we were classifying forest as water. And then let's look at this one here. This one is including some clear area. So let's remove this one and now draw some new ones. This is also forest. Let's try to have at least 10 polygons per class. Oh, these two big ones. This one is clearly a problem. We have a lot of clearing there that was included, like all these little agricultural patches. So we want to make sure we only have forest. And we also want to incorporate that variability in forest cover. Let's incorporate some data from the north. Fantastic. Now the last one to check is agriculture. Okay, so you can see here we are including forest there, so let's remove these two. And here is easier to see the agriculture clearly. Remember, you can also look into this high resolution. Fantastic. We want to incorporate more. That's including some forest there, so I'm going to edit this one. There you go. And include a few more. I'm going to include all these agricultural land there. And let's inspect this one here. Okay, this one is bad. It's including forest as well, so let's delete it. And add a few more. And let's see what happens now. Okay, we can just run this again. And now this classification is starting to look much better. And if we will see in the accuracy, we got this one. So we have no misclassified pixels. So we just improve this classification by modifying the training data. Hopefully you see how important having good training data is for this type of work. Okay, now we have completed the first part of this homework. Let's move to the second part. And we have another link that I have open already. And what it's asking us is to use this code and now find any different study area, anywhere you want, and do another land cover classification. So the idea here is we will recycle code. We will reuse the code that we have to perform a classification somewhere else. We need to have at least 4 classes, and at least one has to be different from what we were using before in class. So this is the code. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove all these training data we have, these polygons we were using to train the model. I'm going to provide a name and a date. Today is December. And I don't need this study area anymore. So I'm going to do is zoom out, and I'm going to work with a place I know well, that is in South America, and it's really at the tip of the continent here. So this is called Navarino Islands, where I worked for my PhD in the past. So I'm going to use this place as my study area. So I'm going to create here geometry, and I want to work right here. Fantastic. So now I have my study area, and I'm going to provide the same name we were using before. Now the next part, we have the function to mask clouds and to rename bands. We won't change anything there. Then we have a function to add NDVI. This is a new function that what it's doing is renaming the bands. So instead of using V2, V3, V4, V5, V6, we're using something that's more familiar for us, like near infrared, red, blue, green, and so on. Just something else for you to to keep there in mind. The important part now is to get um, a good Landsat, a composite, to work with this classification. And I know this is a region that has a lot of clouds, so I'm going to be a little bit more easy with the filter. Instead of filtering for 20%, I will accept images with up to 40%. And because this is a really seasonal place, I don't want any images from the winter because this place will be covered in snow. So I'm going to work with just more summer, and we are in the southern hemisphere, so December, January, February, March is much is better because I know it's less likely to have snow. So let's see what we get here. Yeah, you will get errors because in the rest of the code you're missing a lot of variables. But what I'm interested now is in seeing the image that I'm getting. You can also comment out so you don't get these errors until you get to those points. So let's see how this looks. Okay, so no clouds, that's good. Oh, there are some clouds there, so I'm getting some holes there with no data. So what I'm going to do is use more months and maybe 50%. I'll try again. Okay, now I have something much better. And sometimes it's okay to have little gaps with no data in your image. So you will just not be able to classify. So we have a couple pixels there with no data, and we will accept that. So the next step is to start defining my classes and starting to create some data to train the model. So before we used forest, agriculture, sun and water. For this place I'm going to keep forest. I don't have agriculture here, but I have a kind of grassland, I'm going to call it. I don't have sand, but I have infrastructure. And I will keep water because I have the ocean here. So these are the 4 classes I'm going to work with. What I need to do now is start creating some of that information. Some polygons to train this data. So let's start with new area. And I'm going to do first forest. Let me turn off the study area. So we see here clearly these forest patches. So this is a good one. Next one I'm going to do, now that I got blue, I'm going to do water. Here I'm going to put this back the map so I know exactly where the border of the study area are, so I can start creating some polygons for water. So next I'm going to do the infrastructure. Most of the infrastructure is going to be here in this little town. So you see, so we won't have too many polygons. I have to be careful because there's many trees in the middle there. So I want to make sure I don't get those. I only get the houses and roads. Like here's a good one. And now finally I need to get this other, we call it grassland. It's a mix actually of vegetations. I want to give this shiny green, and it's these short bushy areas we have here in the coast, and also here. This is another good example. We can contrast that perfect. We want to get this variation here as well, and we want to get these vegetation patches that are similar. They are not forest, more clear areas. Okay, I have 9. I could, let's see, I could include here a couple more. Fantastic. So now I have my polygons. You see that everything is in violet, so that's good. And we don't have to change anything. Remember, everything will run automatically. Now the bands, we have renamed them. So our bands are going to be blue, green, red, near infrared, the sweet one, and NDVI. So we use a function up here to rename the bands. So that's why we have these bands. So we went from the V2, V3, V4, V5, V6 to blue, green, red, near infrared, sweet one. We also added NDVI. So those are going to be the variable, the bands we will use to train our classifier. So we are training the classifier, and now what we need to do is change these colors. So that dark green is okay because we still have forest. Then we have grassland, infrastructure, and water. So we want to keep dark blue. Infrastructure, we could use yellow, that's fine. And here we will use different green, light. Oops, light green. And we click run, and we see how that goes. We got an 85% accuracy, and we can see here that we have some mixed classifications for forest, water is good, some errors. infrastructure is being confused with sand. That's one that you can expect. But we got more than 85% accuracy. So it's pretty good overall. Let me turn off these ones. So probably if we want to fix this classification, we should create more polygons for forest, because it's confusing some forest with water. So there, for example, we can tell now that's forest. So activate forest and say no, this we are classifying as water, this is forest. This is also forest here. This is also forest. Here, yeah, this is forest. This one did a good job classifying that layer, but here, for example, this is forest. So we need to, the algorithm is having a hard time identifying all the forest. And then the other one is having a hard time here is with infrastructure. And the main problem is that a lot of the roads in this town are not paved. So then it's confusing the sand on the coastline or the rocks with infrastructure. But let's see if we could improve at least the forest cover. We run again. Have the new classification, and let's check on the error here. We see we slightly improved that classification. Let's turn off these layers, and like the forest now is much better. Still having a few problems with distinguishing forest from the what we call grassland, but that's because yeah, we should divide that grassland in more categories if we want to improve that, do a better job. But for the demonstration of the homework, the idea is you can see how you can improve that classification and so on. You can continue with the other ones. You can see that still the infrastructure is having problems with classifying the rocky shores of the coast and sandy shores as infrastructure. But that's pretty good because we get a road here and we got the runway most of the town, so that's fun. That's pretty good. This is in classification. So now what we want to do is export that. That's the last activity we have, is export it to our Google Drive. So what I'm going to do then is look in the documentation for export. I want to use export image to drive. Here we need to pass two arguments that are important. One is the name of the image we want to export our classified image, and then we want to provide the scale. And now when we run this again, we have a new task, and we want to run this and provide a task name. That's okay. We can say land cover classification, and we will use the same name to export. We'll leave it in the main drive folder. You click run, and after a few seconds that will export. Classification was successfully exported, and now you can see it. You have it in your Google Drive, and then as a TIFF file, and you can download it and use it in other software, as we spoke before. Well, with that we finished the homework for week 4, and hopefully you get to practice and see how the workflow for a land cover classification is, and I'm excited, looking forward to see what you you are doing in different study areas. So we see you on Tuesday. Thanks. Bye bye.